twofold. I want to show you to kind of take a dive into Facebook, into the iOS iOS updates and some things that you need to make sure that are set up correctly in order to continue running your campaigns somewhat effectively. And then I'm doing a little bit of a Q&A. And so I do have a couple questions that we'll answer after I kind of go with this. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to do that. And then we'll answer some questions. If you have some additional questions, just feel free to like drop them in the comments and stuff. And I hope you enjoy this. So if you're ready, I'm ready. So let's dive into it. All right. Oop. All right. So this, of course, is, let me get my, okay, this is your business manager, right? Typically when you log in, it's going to look somewhat like this. Okay, this is from the Dude brand. Give you a little inside look here. And so the first thing we want to do, obviously when you have your ad account set up, you want to have your pixel set up and make sure that that's actually firing. And so to do that, we will go into here, go into data sources pixels, and you'll have this green droplet, right? That's going to show that, hey, yes, pixel is set up and it's firing correctly. The next thing we need to do is set up your domain. All right, so to do that, we want to go into the brand safety and hit domains. So if you go into here, this is one of the biggest issues that I have seen with all these ad accounts that are like, hey, you know, my ads completely took a dive. I don't know what to do. And they go in just to kind of look at if some of this stuff has been set up, and it has not. And so this is actually important, very important for you to be able to utilize the API and stuff like that. So Facebook wants to know that you own the domain. So with here, if you don't have it on here, obviously you would just add it, and then it gives you like a little code snippet to either put in like the text as a text record in your DNS, or like a meta tag that you would just put in the head of your website. And once that is done, we got to make sure that the events are actually set up. And so to do that, we go into hit pixel and opens events manager. And we'll go into aggravated event management and hit manage events. And then this will take us here. And this is where we can kind of configure the events, right? And you can only do this really until after you've verified your domain and all that kind of stuff. The other thing is we can set up through like the partner integrations. So if you have like Shopify, WooCommerce, like any of these that you see here, you'd be able to do a lot of this stuff like from WooCommerce or from Shopify, for example. You know, Dude is a Shopify store, and so you'd be able to go in and connect everything there. And so a lot of the coding and stuff like that you don't have to really deal with because it's kind of built in with that partner integration. And so very important to kind of do that with. But even if you have the partner integration, you still have to go in and configure your events. So just kind of go back here when you do configure your events here. You want to make sure that the highest priorities are at the top, right? So for us, the biggest thing is the purchases. So we want to make sure that the purchases are absolutely tracked every single time, you know, because we create lookalikes off of that. We create, you know, retargeting based off of that as well. And obviously, so highest priority to lowest priority. The nice thing with this is no matter what. So if somebody opts out of tracking, they will still record the last event that they did and send that through if you've set this up properly. And so that's why it's really important to set that up properly, because you're still going to get some kind of data. If they do allow tracking, then obviously everything, you'll be able to get every step of the way. But getting at least that last event that was taking place, so whether it was a view content or they added something to the cart but didn't make a purchase, at least we saw that they added something to the cart, and we're getting that data. And so, and that's where we kind of, it's helpful so that when we're continuing to run retargeting campaigns, so if somebody adds something to cart but doesn't make a purchase and all that kind of stuff, we can still kind of run those campaigns because we're still getting that last event. It will still be skewed and it will still be kind of not necessarily clunky, but we're not going to have all the data, unfortunately, but we will have some. And so, but that's what we got to do. If you want anything to be tracked, really, those are the main things that got to be done. And so I'm going to hide my screen now. Boom. All right. So it's Friday, and I love Friday. So I'm going to do a little Q&A. I'm planning on doing this like every Friday. And so if you have questions or something like that comes up, you know, keep watching for our posts and things like that, and post your questions in the comments so that we can kind of get to them come Friday. This is the big Q&A day. So the first question I had on Facebook was, is there anything we can do or look at to increase attribution with the update? We went from 28 days attribution to 7 days, so conversions may be lower than they actually are. That is actually true. And that update actually came a little bit earlier in the year. And that was, a big conversation starter, a big topic of discussion, I guess I should say. And really, it affected some people if they didn't have a ton of conversions or like the certain business model, right? So for Blaze, for example, the process for us to be able to onboard and actually start getting a customer is a lot longer than, say, for like an e-commerce store that's selling a product that, that's cost $10 or $20. That isn't really necessarily a big deal. We can usually capture most of those within a 7-day period. But oddly enough, I've actually been listening to some podcasts and some people that say that they're actually doing a 1-day attribution, which is interesting. But they're testing that too. And so for privacy, as privacy policies and as these laws kind of come and go, and the companies have to make changes in order to comply with that. I don't see us really being able to expand that on Facebook to the 28 days. So there really isn't really much we can do on our end, except for optimize the sales cycle for the clients or the your business. Try to shorten that up. So having like an entry point offer, for example, like for Blaze, like having an offer that's a little less than what we typically would have for the initial, so we can at least get that conversion of people that are buying. That it kind of shortens the span. So the average isn't like 3 weeks or whatever. It's more falls into that 1 week. So that's one thing we can do to kind of capture more purchases within that 7 days. Tim on Instagram said, I know a little bit about the update, but I've heard that it will really hurt retargeting efforts. Love to hear your thoughts and how to retarget website visitors with the new update. So yes, and this is the real thing that all the big gurus and everybody's kind of talking about, right? Is this is going to destroy what we've been able to do, because really, like, before, I was able to create an audience based off somebody who went to a page and then, you know, spent like 30 seconds on that page, right? And then I can, if they didn't take the next step, I could retarget them to advertise to take the next step and take the next step, and so on and so forth. Somebody added something to the cart and didn't make a purchase, or they added something to the cart and didn't even initiate the checkout. I could have a specific campaign that dialed that in, and I was able to capture that on everybody, right? But with this new tracking thing, we're not going to be able to do that, because we're not going to have that much data to build a big enough audience to serve ads to, right? So the big thing, just kind of what I talked about, I think it was on Monday, with restacking lookalikes, to make sure that the audiences are big enough, because even with the lookalikes, the lookalike audiences are built off of a custom audience. So if it was like purchases, or if it was like page engagement or something like that, you're creating a lookalike off of something else, right? So if that original source is not getting enough people into that pixel, enough data into that pixel, then the lookalike isn't really going to perform well either. And so the big thing here is we have to start expanding, and this is what we've been doing kind of at Blaze. We've started to expand the date frame that we're capturing people. So, for example, I used to only do like a 90-day, like a 60-day for page engagement. We moved that to 365 days to capture a year. Looked at you in doing like 180 days as well. And it's going to be the same thing with purchases. Everybody's made a purchase in the last 6 months, just so we can get enough data into some of those. And so that's kind of what we're running with now. And it's obviously it's testing. You know, we're always going to be kind of testing with it. But expanding out the date frames and then utilizing those audiences to retarget. And so if you have a big enough budget, you will be able to probably still operate on somewhat of a very similar method. But in some of those, with the really big budgets, I've had, you know, where they're like, okay, we're going to run an abandoned cart campaign, but only in the last 7 days, right? But even those guys, they're going to have to expand that out to like 14, 21, or even 30 days, even with the really big budgets, because the amount of people that are able to track, and if you're only tracking the last event that people take, then it's, you know, even if somebody adds something to cart, you know, doesn't make a purchase, you know, you're not seeing everything all the way through. And so, but with big enough budgets, you know, you're going to be there. So, and you'll be able to operate somewhat similar, but you'll have to expand those date frames. That's kind of, you know, I'm working with a number of different Facebook reps, and that's a lot of stuff too, that where they're, what they're saying. And another thing is what what Facebook is promoting themselves is to use the full customer journey. So under the Facebook, you know, when you go to create under the business manager, when you go to create the campaign, they have those 3 methods or 3 objectives, right? So we have like awareness, and we have traffic, and then we have the conversions. And so having a campaign going in each of those and having those feed into one another is going to be more and more relevant and prevalent as this kind of unfolds. But even Facebook is very is still kind of testing things and still rolling things out for it. So I think the rest of this year, we're going to kind of see things come and go, and it's going to kind of be a little bit clunky with Facebook ads. But those that have like a legitimate strategy behind it, and they understand, you know, and they're tracking the right metrics. So for example, if you're running a traffic campaign, we have to realize that is optimizing to drive traffic. It's not optimized for people to make a purchase. Same thing with awareness. the awareness campaigns are there to get your message out in front of as many people as possible, right? And that's another reason for Facebook to do that, is because to try to get more people into these audiences and things like that. And so if we have like an ad engagement audience where people engage with either like a post or an ad, that's where, like the awareness or like the engagement campaigns and stuff like that's going to really come into play, because we're going to have to drive a lot more people to those to be able to retarget to them for like a conversion campaign. So that's kind of my long-winded answer for that. Yeah, so I don't want to make this super long. I know we've been going on for a little bit, but I appreciate the questions. I love providing, I love having that discussion and stuff like that. And so I'll just kind of cut it from here. But if you do have questions for next week, definitely drop them in. And the other thing is, if you're running a business and you want more of an insight on how to run a more structured campaign, go on the website, sign up for a strategy session, and we can kind of take you through what I call is the double your sales discovery session. And it's where we can kind of take an overall look at some things and start to put a plan together to double your sales over the next 12 months. So thanks again. Keep killing it. Have a killer weekend.